Hey everyone, I'm joined by Representative Ro Khanna, who is a Democrat from my home state of California, and more importantly, from the Bay Area, my hometown. And he's joined me today, and we joined us in mid-conversation. As I was saying, you have been Laura Loomered, taken as a badge of honor, but she's also a freak, an Islamophobe, a hate monger, a person who should not have any role whatsoever in mainstream society, but nonetheless has the ear of Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America. For folks who don't know, she's had private meetings with Donald Trump, and based on her advice, he has made decisions specifically to release and let go of his own security team. Not making this up, folks. She recently went after Representative Ro Khanna for threatening him for speaking at Arabcon. And she said, I'm going to make sure all of your donors know that you're speaking at this conference. So now that we've admitted to the world that you spoke at this conference, Representative Ro Khanna, no offense, and now it's known, why was she so triggered by you speaking at Arabcon? Break it down for the people who don't know.
First of all, Arabcon is the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee that was started by a Democratic senator in 1980. This is not some fringe group. It was started to deal with the challenges that the Arab American community has faced in the United States. And there was a 3-day conference. I was there because I have led, as you know, Wajat, the call for the United States to recognize a Palestinian state. And so they reached out to me and said, would you come on a panel with Cenk Uygur and speak about the importance of recognizing a Palestinian state? And I said, I'd be delighted to. And that's really what my 1-hour panel was about. In fact, for my panel, they were trying to invite Richard Grenell, who was a Trump supporter, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, and some of them almost came. But I said I'd be happy to come with a Republican. By the way, Donald Trump, unfortunately for our own side, met with a lot of these people who were attending the conference when he came to Dearborn, and our own party didn't meet with them. And that's one of the reasons that we lost some of this Dearborn vote. Now, what Laura Loomer is doing is she put out a selectively edited clip of some comment that someone made on some panel at the conference that I disagreed with. I've never even heard about whether October 7th attacks were in any way justified. I have said that October 7th attacks were terrorist attacks, and I've called unconditionally for the release of hostages, and I've been saying this for 2 years. But this is sort of the game that people play in modern politics to try to attribute the beliefs of any single person at a conference to the people speaking, and most Americans see through it.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, full disclosure, because it's 1 degree of brown separation, I was talking to some of the people who were running the Arabcon, and they told me the people you were inviting. And they said, yeah, we want to get Ro with Massie or Ro with MTJ. I'm like, that's fantastic. You should do that. And I'm glad that you went. I'm glad that you acknowledged the mistakes that were made, not just in Dearborn, but also Michigan. I've gone to Michigan several times. And not just the Arabs there, but a lot of people said, man, we wanted to vote Democrat. Democrats literally did not speak to us. The Democrats literally kicked us out because we were bringing up Gaza. And instead, then Trump, very cynically but successfully, as you know, this is how politics works, sends Richard Grenell and his own team. And then people are like, we didn't like Trump, but okay, we're like, at least he's talking to us. It's transactional. Maybe we can end the genocide.
Yeah.
And now
And
we're
he
seeing
came. He himself came for a day.
he himself. Absolutely. And people are like, oh, this is cynical and stupid. I'm like, it's very smart politics. You all don't know your base. But now people seem to be realizing, oh, wait, there's a genocide happening. And they look at the numbers and they realize overwhelmingly that the Democratic voters want to end the occupation, the genocide. They want a ceasefire. They want the return of hostages. And they want Democrats to stop sending arms. The last time you and I talked, you said you would wait to call it a genocide, wait upon the declaration. Where are you right now?
Well, I agree that it is because the UN has spoken, and I have always said that I wanted to wait until we had an international body. Now, I really wanted to wait until the ICJ ruled, but for me, the UN report was damning enough, and I put out a public statement that I agreed with the UN report. Look, the statistic that the UN report cited that to me was the most shocking, and obviously there are a lot of them, but that the life expectancy in Gaza has fallen from 75 years to 40 years.
Mm.
I mean, that is just heart wrenching. And so I have acknowledged what's going on. Now, what I will say is, even though I have, and now I think there are about 25 of us or so in Congress, the I'm less concerned about what people call it and more concerned about what we do about it. And the main issue still is that we've got to stop the arm cells to which are being used to kill civilians. And so, and we should be recognizing a Palestinian state. And so, my hope is to build a coalition of a large part of Congress.
I appreciate you coming around to that. We had a back and forth last
We
time
did,
where you asked me, you said, why is it so important, watch, for me to call it genocide? If you and I agree on the same end goals of
yeah,
stopping the occupation, stopping the genocide, stopping the killing, stopping the sending of arms. And I said then, which I'll say now, is you have to recognize the thing for what it is, number one, but also what it does, it triggers a responsibility, both moral and legal, for us, the United States, to not participate in an ongoing genocide. And I
right.
think the fact that you said there's 45 Democrats, I wish there were more. But the good news is
25, I think, to 25.
25. Yeah, well, 40 should be 45, but it's only
Yeah.
25. Hopefully more. But
There's a
majority
guy, Prem Tucker, who keeps a running
a list,
list.
yeah, Mateo.
Yeah.
Prem keeps a list, but that pressure is working, and that pressure, in addition to now 25, which should be more, but I appreciate the fact it's 25. Last time we discussed, there was a majority of Democrats in the Senate who voted to stop sending arms to Israel, including Bernie Sanders. But now there are 47 Democrats. Led by you, urging Trump and Rubio and the Trump administration to recognize a Palestinian state, calling it a moral duty. What forced you to come out and rally these 47 to at this moment, recognize a Palestinian state?
Well, first of all, it's historic that we have this push and that we have 47 Democrats. Some said, well, oh, couldn't you get more? I said, usually these type of letters we get 3 or 4. We got 47 on calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state. And the APEC letter, which was the oppositional letter, because APEC was all out trying to defeat my efforts, they only got 30. So the tide has turned.
Absolutely.
Matt Duss, who was Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor, said that 20 years ago, Apex, a lobbyist, had bragged that if there was a napkin within 24 hours, they could get 70 senators to sign the napkin on whatever they wanted. How far we have come from that moment. Now, why now? First of all, the entire world is around the principle of calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state. You've had 4 of the 5 permanent Security Council members, France, UK, Russia, China do it. Over 450 countries do it. Canada, Australia. And the reason they're doing it is because Smotrich and Ben Gvir and Netanyahu and Israel are trying to erase the Palestinian identity. They're explicitly saying that they want to deny a Palestinian state. They're not just invading Gaza, they're expanding settlements in the West Bank. And so if the world doesn't say, no, you can't do that, we are going to stand for Palestinian self-determination, then we're going to see the erasure of Palestinian identity. That is why this is so important in this moment.
No, I appreciate it, and it is important. And look, I said last time to you, and I'll say it again, that whichever Democrat goes all in on this is on the right side of history and will also be rewarded by the majority because, like me, you see all the numbers, the polls, and in real time, you're witnessing now that Israel is becoming. It's like South Africa, but worse because South Africa in the '80s kids also became a pariah due to apartheid. But in addition to apartheid, there's occupation and there's also this ongoing genocide. Just as an elected official, and you mentioned something that you and I are. I'm older, I think, than you, but you and I are old, or maybe we might be the same age. Forget 20 years ago, even 3 years ago, you would not see the UN body openly just walk out on Netanyahu in those mass numbers. You would not see 27 Democrats, I mean, let alone 10, come out and say, yeah, we're not going to send arms. You would not even see 20 Democrats, let alone 47, recognize the Palestinian state. Your thoughts about what you saw happen at the UN when a majority of the representatives just walked out on Netanyahu before he spoke?
Well, it didn't surprise me. I mean, here you have someone who's continuing a war that's killing women and children. How can you just listen to his one-sided account? And there's not much that some of those delegates could do because they're not the ones supplying the arms and they're not the ones supporting him. So their act of walking out was their act of civil disobedience in showing that they did not agree with what was going on. And this is one of the other areas for the United States is when you look at our national interests. Why would we want to be a pariah in the world? This it's not. I mean, I believe what Netanyahu is doing is morally wrong. But even if you don't share my moral outrage, you really think we should be burning every bridge with every other country and letting China then go to the global south and say, look, we can't trust the United States. Trust us to be the leader of the world, the moral leader of the world. That's what they're doing. I was just in China last week in the first Codel to China in 6 years. And they are making this issue a rallying cry for the global South to get them away from American leadership. So, just from a perspective of American leadership, this has become an albatross and demands a change. Now, you and I have seen the same poll numbers, but the reason Laura Loomer attacks me for going to Arabcon and that has radiance, and some of the people actually texted me, people I know, oh, did you really not condemn this panel, which I wasn't even on? But the reason they do this is they want to create a chilling effect, which they in some ways have successfully done, so that other Democratic politicians or have ambitions to be leaders in the House or the Senate or nationally say, well, you know what, we want to stay away from Dearborn. We want to stay away from things like Arabcon. Yeah, we'll talk about aid going into Palestine, but let's just duck the issue. Let's just talk about how Trump is hurting us with tariffs and taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air. We don't need to really speak about this. That's really what they're hoping to do. And we've gone from national Democrats being apologists from Netanyahu to them basically having their head under the table. But I don't think that that's a successful strategy. And if there's one thing we should learn from Donald Trump, and there's very few things, but one thing is he kind of marched to his own drumbeat. You know, he was not afraid to do things that could be seen as unpopular. I mean, I'm sure most Republican candidates would not have gone to Dearborn because they've had to have all their advisors saying, "Oh, is this person vetted? Is what have they said?" And he said, "No, I'm going to do it." Right. And I think we are so afraid of our own shadow in the Democratic Party, so afraid of standing for things, going to places with our base. That is our biggest challenge to be able to win. People sense that.
There's a cowardice. There's also a fear. There's also the worst advice from corporate consultants. There's also the influence of APAC. And it all comes to a head, not just on this issue, but also it's directly related to Zoran Mamdani and the smearing of Zoran Mamdani, the horrible conspiracies that Laura Loomer and others have spread, the support of Cuomo over Mamdani, and Eric Adams has now dropped from the race. And I just want to read you something real quick. You're responsible for yourself, but you're a Democrat and you have Democratic leadership. And this is Hakeem Jeffries, the leader, one of the leaders of the Democrats. Eric Adams has served courageously and authentically for decades as a member of the NYPD, the New York State Senate, and Brooklyn Borough Hall, and as our 110th mayor. During this time in office, violent crime is down, the building of affordable housing units is up, and New York City has recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. Everyone else was saying, why, oh, why did Hakeem Jeffries go out of his way to praise Eric Adams, to support Cuomo, but still has not, Representative Khanna, embraced one of the most popular, charismatic, up-and-coming Democrats who will most likely be the next mayor of New York City, a Democrat, Zoran Mamdani. Where are you on this?
Well, obviously, the party should coalesce around him, not just because he's the Democratic nominee, but because he's managed to do something which very few politicians have done, and that is excite people and inspire people, right? I mean, Bernie did that, Obama did that, and Zoran has done that in terms of in New York. I mean, he's got lines of people, young people, who he has inspired, and he inspired them with a vision of economic hope and economic mobility. So we should be embracing that energy, and by not embracing that, we're sending a message to all these people who he has inspired that they don't matter. So it's perplexing to me, but I do think folks will get there. It's just taken a long time.
I think that's a very important. They don't matter, and that is what so many Democrats are like. We don't matter. Kamala Harris literally, her administration deciding not to bring up Palestine, but instead of bear hugging Liz Cheney was like, oh, we don't matter. Like you said in Michigan, Trump came out there, Grinnell came out there. They sent Bill Clinton to mock and admonish and paternalistically finger wag at Democrats, and they're like, "Oh, we don't matter. We'll just stay at home." Zoran Mamdani, up and coming. We'd rather embrace Cuomo, praise Adams, still not embrace Mamdani. Oh, we don't matter. And another group that says that we don't matter that has been long, long forgotten, and thankfully now they're in the spotlight are the girls who are now women who were raped by Epstein and Maxwell and their friends. And some latest news is a whole bunch of people seem to be in these files. Now, just because you're in these files, folks, doesn't mean that you did something, but they're in the files. And some of the hypocrites who are in these files, Elon Musk, who's been on and on about Pakistani and Muslim grooming gangs and the left and immigrants, he's in the files. Allegedly, Peter Thiel's in the files. Talk to us about the latest about the Epstein files, because for those who don't know, you have joined Thomas Massie in a bipartisan effort to try to release the files. Where are we right now with releasing the files? And before I get you on this, I want to remind everyone that the Epstein files and releasing the Epstein files is literally the only bipartisan issue uniting Americans. The last poll said that over 80% of Republicans, 80% of independents, 80% of MAGA, and over 80% of Democrats all want the release of the Epstein files. So, Representative Khanna, talk to the people. We want the Epstein files. How come we don't have them?
Well, that's why this is such a powerful issue. It's about going after a corrupt government that has protected rich and powerful men. And people understand that the government has been rigged and is now working for them. They understand that they've lost the American dream and that the government they see is protecting these pedophiles, protecting people who are covering up for a pedophile. And then they look and they say, well, Jeffrey Epstein is hanging out with Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Peter Thiel. How? Like, this guy's not the president of the United States. Why are all these rich and powerful people around him? What is going on? And who was involved in the cover up of his crimes, and who was involved in what the survivors' lawyers say is the farm system, where he had these girls farmed out to other powerful men. So this is bringing together people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, me, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Thomas Massie. We have 217 signatures. The next signature gets the vote scheduled on the House, and Adelita Grijalva has won her race. She
In
should be
Arizona.
sworn in tomorrow in a pro forma session, but now they're trying to push it out. It's unprecedented. I mean, when the Florida seats were open after Matt Gaetz left, after Michael Waltz left, they immediately swore in the members when the Republicans won. Now they are so afraid of this Epstein vote that they may not swear in Adelita Grijalva tomorrow. Then they may wait till the official certification, which is October 14th, and then we'll get the process then. But my point is, they are just afraid and delaying. Why are they delaying? They're putting enormous pressure on the Republicans who have signed the discharge petition, trying to get one of them off.
Now, for those who don't know, Adelita Grijalva is a progressive from Arizona, won her special election recently. And what Representative Khanna is saying, she should have been sworn in this week, but Mike Johnson has punted. I wonder why. And I can only assume, connecting the dots, that you've spoken to her and she is for you in the 217, and she's going to vote to release the files. So
Well,
you
she's
get
not
the
just told me that. She's done videos on that. She said she's been public about that, uh, and uh, and she said that she wants to be seated, and she said that she's not being seated because of the Epstein files. So it just and it I don't think these folks understand that when they do things like this, it actually adds more fuel to the desire for the Epstein files to come out, because people are saying, "Really, you're not going to seat a member of Congress over this? Is there that much to hide?" You're not willing to have votes. You're willing to actually keep Congress out while there's a shutdown possibly of government. Do you have that
can you
much?
remind people that? Because I was going to get there. People already forgot. Tell them what happened in the summer. Instead of releasing the Epstein
Well,
files, which I think should be bigger news, tell them what Mike Johnson did.
Well, he shut down Congress a week early because he didn't want this vote on a release of the Epstein files. And now there's a looming shutdown. You would think we should be voting on things, even if it's not voting to resolve it. You would just think keep members in DC voting so that people know that there's some work going on. Usually that's what they do, by the way, in a shutdown. They don't just send people home, but they don't want to vote because they know that that triggers the legislative day clock for the vote on the Epstein files. The way it happens is the day Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in, 7 days after that, 7 legislative days after that, we will get a vote on the House. So if they don't have legislative days, we keep delaying getting a vote on the House. And this is their whole strategy. And that, but people are asking, well, really, you're holding up the entire work of Congress. You're preventing the Congress from having votes during a possible shutdown because you're so afraid of releasing the Epstein files.
It's the Adelita Grijalva election is big on a number of levels, but the fact, maybe the biggest in the short term, is it gives the 218 votes, and we've seen Republicans literally do anything, literally shut down Congress, then release the votes, and now it just seems inevitable. And what we found out, folks, for those who haven't followed the Epstein files, that the Wall Street Journal reported that Pam Bondi told Donald Trump. In May, that he's all up in the files. And I've been using the word that this has been a cover up. This has been a cover up for several months. I think that's the word that should be used. The Trump administration is covering up the Epstein files. Why? I wonder why. Because I think it will release some very, very damaging, incriminating evidence, not just about Donald Trump, but a whole bunch of people. But the women this time around are not staying silent. And you and Thomas Massie, and I believe Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene recently met with the women, and the women who were girls at the time who were raped have come out and said, if Congress doesn't do the right thing, we have the names. Talk to us about the women and how they, the survivors really, and how they are not letting this go.
Well, they've been the true heroes. They're so courageous. They spoke to the entire nation in front of the Capitol at an event that Massie and I organized. And they talked about how they were raped at the age of 13, 14, told to recruit other junior high and high school girls to go get raped and to go be farmed out to other powerful men. And one of them actually said that they have the names of other people who were involved in the cover up and abuse, and they will release them if the government doesn't. But we shouldn't be putting that burden on them. This is a need to release it by the government. The government has FBI interviews of these witnesses. They have witness memorandum. All of that needs to come out. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be transparency. This is about restoring trust in government, and we can't trust our government to prosecute the pedophilia, to prosecute those who covered up pedophilia. Then what can we trust our government for?
How many women do you have now, survivors, who have joined up with you and Massey and others?
Well, there are many, many survivors. There were about 10 who spoke out at this press conference, and I think, going forward, we're gonna see more survivors speaking out for the first time. They are not gonna rest until these files are released.
Someone in the chats just mentioned that Virginia Giuffre's book's coming out in 3 weeks. And for those who don't know, Virginia Giuffre was 16 years old. She was working at Mar-a-Lago. Her father was an employee at Mar-a-Lago. She was working as a spa attendant, and she was reading a book on massage therapy. Ghislaine Maxwell was there, literally approached her, groomed her, lied to her, said, you'll have a better opportunity with Epstein. She went to Epstein, where she said, her words were, she was passed around like a platter of fruit over the next year and a half to wealthy men. She also is the one who pointed out it was Prince Andrew, and she had just a really rough life for the next 25 years, and she died just a couple of months ago. And Donald Trump referred to her as property. He said, Jeffrey's still property for me. He was referring to a girl, Virginia Giuffre, who's no longer with us. That book's out in 3 weeks, folks. So there are real victims here. I always want people to remember that. Yes, uh, everyone's implicated. Yes, it'll expose these folks. Yes, there's accountability. Yes, it'll help the Democrats, but there are victims. There are victims here. And I do want to get your thoughts on this, because there are a lot of powerful people, Ro, who do not want this out. And I think it was yesterday. I want to get the timestamp on this. I believe it was yesterday, where Marjorie Taylor Greene, excuse me, 2 days ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I'm not suicidal and one of the happiest, healthiest people you will meet. I have full faith in God and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. As a sinner, I'm only saved through his grace and mercy. With that said, if something happens to me, I ask you all to find out which foreign government or powerful people will take heinous actions to stop the information from coming out. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a sitting congresswoman. Your response to that tweet?
Well, it's sad that this is country has come to that, but the reality is when you take positions, as I have, as Thomas Massie has, as others have, taking on rich and powerful forces, you put yourself at risk, certainly political risk, if not more broad risk. And those who have spoken out about what Israel is doing in Gaza have done that, and those of us who are speaking out about these rich, powerful men who have done this in Epstein are doing that. But ultimately, what people in this country want is conviction and willingness to stick up against clear wrongs and being willing to show some risk and courage because the American people show that every day.
Let me ask you this final question before I let you go. And speaking on that, conviction, sincerity, authenticity, a fight. People want fighters. And football season's here. Even if your team loses, as long as your team goes all the way to the end, there was a great Packers Cowboys game last night. It ended up in overtime tie. People say, you know what? At least they fought. And right now, what people want is fighters against what they call increasingly a fascist regime. I believe it's a fascist regime. You have the government, a shutdown possibly coming up. And people are saying, why, oh, why should Democrats be complicit in keeping this government open, which has been used as an institution of oppression against the rest of us? Republicans have the numbers. Let Republicans figure this out. Your take on this looming government shutdown?
No, I totally agree. They have the votes in the Senate and the House. We shouldn't be complicit in a government that is taking comedians off the air, in a government that is deporting people without due process, in a government that is politicizing the Justice Department to prosecute its enemies, in a government that is unconstitutionally putting tariffs on Americans and raising their prices. I said we shouldn't even be talking to Trump. We should be talking to the Republicans in Congress and saying, okay, if you want our votes, then how about us having collectively sticking up for the Congress. And let's make sure that if Congress actually appropriates something, that the Trump administration is going to spend it, that they're going to follow the Constitution. That should be the conversation instead of surrendering or cowering to Donald Trump. And so I believe that we need to hold tough here, have our dignity intact, and not be giving our votes to a government that is violating every one of our rights.
From your lips to Schumer's ears, for the love of God, hold tough, hold tough, hold tough. The people will be with you. Do not be complicit. And the final follow-up question is, do you think, I use these words, I think it's fair if any student of fascism reads this, this is now a fascist regime. What do you call this regime, the Trump regime? Would you agree with my assessment?
Well, I don't, I'm not one that lives. I say, here's what I think it is. It is.
I'll give you also authoritarian. I'll give you
Well, yeah,
choices.
of course it's engaged in authoritarian actions, but I think it's fundamentally worse. It's fundamentally unconstitutional. And in this country, the Constitution is our sacred document. Lincoln called the Constitution our political religion. And so the greatest insult, in my view, as an American, is for people to be doing things that are fundamentally unconstitutional. And this administration is taking unconstitutional steps in every way. The reason I people say, well, why are you not using certain words? Look, the we've been calling Trump every name in the book since he came down the escalator, and it hasn't worked. What's going to work is to explain to the American people, the broad American people who voted for him, why he's betrayed them and why he's betraying the very ideals that they believe in. And I think we can make a very factual case of what he's done in terms of infringing the First Amendment, in terms of infringing the constitutional rights of immigrants, in terms of infringing the rights of people who are innocent with the Justice Department, and that is going to build us a majority in this country.
Authoritarian, incompetent, unconstitutional, and at the end of the day, he is terrible for your economy and your well-being. Ro Khanna, when it comes to guests, I always tell them to shamelessly promote themselves. But since you're an elected official, I will instead ask you this: what is one thing you recommend people doing, the average Jose, average Joe? Because I get asked this all the time. I'm sure you do as well. Literally, people say, I'm a nobody. What can I do? And I always tell them I'm a nobody as well. So to all the nobodies, the fellow nobodies, and all the average Americans just like me watching, what is one thing they can do in this moment to take back our country from this corrupt, unconstitutional regime?
You can speak up, and that can look in many forms. It can mean being on social media. It can mean attending a march. It can mean attending a town hall. It can mean talking to a neighbor. It can mean talking in your temple or church or synagogue. When we speak up, it matters. That it reversed the decision on Jimmy Kimmel, the Sinclair and Next Star backed down and now are carrying Jimmy Kimmel. We saw the pressure with Abrego, where he was brought back into the country. Speaking up, pushing back against bullies makes a difference. And when an individual does it, it can feel helpless. And what does it really matter if I'm doing it? But when you multiply that by millions, it makes a big difference.
Representative Ro Khanna is one of the 25 Democrats who has come around and acknowledged that Israel's committing a genocide. We need more. He's one of the 47 Democrats urging the Trump administration to recognize a Palestinian state, joining UK, France, Australia, majority of the world. And he is working in a bipartisan fashion with Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene to release the Epstein Files. Come back anytime. Thank you so much, Representative Ro Khanna. I appreciate it. Thank you to your team and everyone else. I appreciate you all watching. Be kind, be decent. Do one good thing, take care of yourselves, be proactive, use your voice, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Take care.
Thank you.